listening to the Star Trek News Podcast, and today we'll be reviewing the penultimate episode of Star Trek Discovery. My name is Jordan. I'll be your co-host. Joining me today, it's Jeremy. And Jeremy, a great podcaster, once gave me this piece of advice. I can't even remember what it was. Jeremy, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jordan. From battle at the binary stars to battle at the binary black holes, Discovery has come full circle. Back to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's exactly the hard-hitting analysis we come to expect from Jeremy. Today we will be reviewing Star Trek Discovery's Season 5, Episode 9, Lagrange Point. It's written by Sean Cochran and Ari Friedman, directed by Jonathan Frakes. After Maul and the Breen capture a mysterious structure that contains the progenitor's power, Captain Burnham must lead a covert mission to retrieve it before the Breen figure out how to use it. Which there's no way they figured it out today or this week's episode, because it is in the finale. They keep us waiting on that one. Before we get into that, what are your first impressions for this week's episode, Jeremy?
Basically, what you just alluded to, Jordan. It's a good setup, but we're essentially just seeing the first 45 minutes of the 2-hour finale. So unlike the rest of the self-contained episodes they've done this year, this one is slightly more difficult to rank on its own. And it's going to have to tie in a lot with how it all ends up at the end of the series finale. But I enjoyed it, but it's just all set up. What about you?
Yeah, almost your thoughts exactly. I said, essentially, unlike most penultimate episodes, Discoveries will be shaped by how the finale is executed next week. The episode felt shorter than I was expecting and almost a little rushed. I saw it was about 46 minutes. So, take out the title sequence and the previous on, you're looking at maybe 40 minutes. So, and that the next week's episode is about 2 hours long, you said?
I think it is. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's like 80 minutes or something. So it's almost an hour and a half.
If that's the case, then I'm not as worried. But yeah, if next week's episode is 45 minutes, oh my gosh. So, but that's right on par with most Star Trek finales, close to 2 hours with commercials. So you're looking about an hour and a half. So that would be good. I think there's still a lot of ground to cover, but I think they can still do it and maybe stick the landing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much. An hour and a half. I wonder if this was going to be like your regular 55-minute, 1 hour finale like they normally do. And then maybe a half hour of tacked on stuff at the end to kind of wrap things up. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Really, all they have to do is build the shape of the one between the many, and whoops-a-doozle, it's done. So
Easy as that.
It's that easy. I'm not sure if that's like a mystery thing that needs to be solved, or just like the marching orders for Michael Westmore. It's like, hey, We got one shape. Make it work. Build many.
As long as it's a nose piece, I'm on it.
Yep. All right, let's get into our pros and maybe, what worked for you in this week's episode.
Pros, I remembered that Discovery could cloak. So
As did I.
I don't know. What did you think about the cloak? Is it too visible when it's cloaked? I know it's just kind of a visual thing for us, but
for the enemy, yes, definitely too visible. As like a TV thing, I prefer like when you see the Defiant cloak. It's like you see it and then it's not there anymore. Like to me, that's a cloak. This is more of just like, hey, you're dumb. We got to show you that the ship's still there. It didn't explode or something. So it's fine. It's neither here nor there to me. At this point, we haven't really seen Discovery cloak very much. So it's kind of weird that they're bringing that in and kind of giving us that imagery here. But
yeah, I wish it was neither here nor there, but it is because we could see it
right
even
there.
when it's cloaked. Reese got his piece of the action. So good for him, being the one member of the background crew that stuck around, so gets some more stuff to do this season on Discovery. Good on him. We did get another couple wonderful action pieces to tag on from last week, where we get Disco fighting its way between collapsing stars to get to the Lagrange Point. And fighting its way into the Breen cargo bay, I thought was That was really cool. I, you never know how the power levels of things. Like when you're charging at a city, the fact that they can make it to the cargo bay without being destroyed is kind of crazy. But I mean, it's just everything's as powerful as the story demands it to be. So that's fine. I thought that was pretty exciting. I liked Adira on their away mission. I also enjoyed how Stamets went into fatherly protectiveness when that happened. Like, knowing that they are part of the Starfleet, but still just like, wait, anybody else can also do this. I can do this. I'm not as good, but I can certainly learn. Like, I definitely see that over Stamets. That was really good. And I really enjoyed Tilly also in that scene. And as the teacher speaking up for Adira and just be like, no, they can do this. I thought that was all really well done. And of course, Rayner right back where he needs to be, which is in my pros. Great episode for Rayner. I was a little hesitant because it's like, oh no, Burnham's just leaving him back on the bridge. Jordan's gonna roast him. He's gonna go after the Rayner just left again. But I really like Rayner on the bridge, and I don't know about you, Jordan, but when for no reason at the beginning Tilly mentioned about how he never sits down, I thought by episode's end, I hope he sits down. And by golly, he did. And granted, I saw it coming a mile away, but I thought it was really well done. And it's Rayner and Tilly. I really enjoy them together. I think they're a great team. Clearly, the writers are setting this relationship up for the upcoming Starfleet Academy show, now starring Holly Hunter. And I also just love a good old-fashioned heist plot, so that was pretty fun. I like the plan. Makes sense. You got to sneak aboard somehow, have a team get the transport lock on the item, the other team disabling shields to transport it. It makes sense while adhering to established Trek canon. But that's all well and good and makes sense in Star Trek. You got to lower those shields. You got to establish a transport lock. This is the mission. I thought that was all pretty well done. That's it for pros. I got some neutral zones. You want me to go through neutral zones, or do you want to hit us with your pros?
Yeah, go ahead and go to the neutral zone, and then I'll follow up with my pros.
All right. Michael and Book, I still love them and rooting for them. At least recognizing this is a terrible time to discuss their feelings was nice, but they still did it. They still took the time in a brain chip to talk about their feelings. And man, just when Michael thought she had closed that book forever, she turns a page and a new chapter begins. So I'm pretty excited for that. Just poor timing. And Saru is back, which is great, but Saru is not in my pros. He's just leapt up into the neutral zones from the cons because he is here, but he still didn't have much to do. So happy to see him again. And it definitely looks like they're setting up Saru for a potentially big pro in the series finale next week, doing the diplomacy thing. And also, if I could sit in for Jocelyn's fashion corner for a moment, Saru's blue ambassador getup looks amazing. I thought he looked great and totally missed him. But man, I was really excited. A couple of years ago, I think it was before season 4 started. I don't know if you remember, but I had guessed that Saru was actually going to go on to become an ambassador so that Michael could lead the ship. And then that didn't happen until like the end of season 4, maybe whenever that happened. I was about a year ahead of that. We haven't got a chance to see any Saru ambassador missions, which is kind of sad. It's almost like you haven't been this ever since you fell into that nest of Gundarks. Like, well, I want to see that nest, Jordan. I want to see that nest of Gundarks that Saru has to navigate through as an ambassador instead of just being told about it. And all of Book and Michael's wacky adventures that we never really got to see, but still continue to hear about. President Rylak makes an appearance. It's a neutral zone because I don't really care, but good to see her because she's the president. No Vance or who's big glass? Is it Krychek? Who's the glasses guy?
Mr. Glass, Kovic?
Kovic. It's just a shame they couldn't get everybody back for this. Kovic. Yeah, that's it. It's a shame they couldn't
Maury
get...
Povich?
Yeah, that's... And he was not in this episode, unfortunately. Either was Vance, Boo. And I just wonder if they knew... This is another thing. If they knew this was going to be the last season, would they have had all these people in it more? Like, look at the final chapter of Deep Space Nine. They knew it was the final 10 episodes, so they had 14 special guests in every episode because they knew this was it. We got to wrap all this up. So it just feels like we...
And fun fact, the bridge crew was mostly in those last few episodes.
Yes.
Very important part that they played as well.
Yeah, I don't remember if O'Brien and Bashir left to take a piece back to Bajor for the last 7 episodes, but shame. Michael once again using her xenoanthropologist skills again, which is great, a pro, but like you always say, Jordan, it's less impressive as a skill when you're equally great at everything else as well.
That's true. I say that about you all the time.
Thanks. That's really what I got. Like, I still enjoyed this episode, but we're just left wondering and hanging on for another week. So, Jordan, what do you got for pros and neutral zones?
Well, you mentioned the stars collapsing, the 2 black holes, and I haven't seen 2 bigger stars collapse since Steven Seagal and Ja Rule started Half Past Dead.
Hell yeah.
The Rayner chair stuff you mentioned as well. I was standing in solidarity with Rayner, so I was very relieved when he finally sat down. I also went back and skimmed through some previous episodes. It was like, there's no way he didn't sit down. And I looked through like 3 episodes and he was standing in all of them. So
okay,
he probably sat in the chair at some point, maybe, but I didn't find it. So I was ready to call Discovery on this one. And yeah.
That's a shame they didn't bring that up earlier. If it's been like 7 episodes, like instead of calling it out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they wait for the right time. It's kind of cool when there's some long form storytelling, even though it's just about a man standing. But hey,
I'll take it.
I give them points where I can. Saru's ambassador regalia, you already mentioned, looked pretty slick. The Breen are a people who lend themselves to be easily infiltrated. I will say that. Anytime you're a masked society who speaks in electronica, like, you're just asking for your ship to be taken over. It took nearly 5 full seasons, but we finally get a full-fledged away mission, complete with secondary characters, Jeremy. It was nice. They had an A team and a B team. And Michael and Book were the B team. Sure. Okay, Michael. We're not buying that. That was interesting. Not that the A team got much to do in this episode, but hey, they got to dress up at least. I did like the effect when the people get sucked into that barrel of whiteout. I thought that was kind of a cool effect. We will have to wait and see where that leads, but Rayner's first plan sucked. So I'm glad that he had a backup plan that was much better, because he's like, yeah, we'll just decloak and tell him we're here. It's like, oh, God dang it, Rayner. He's like, yeah, that didn't work. Okay. Jeez. But he totally redeemed himself.
He sure did.
He backed Discovery up and knocked off the door, but yeah, he fixed it. Neutral zone wise, there's just the opening shot is, here's all the characters you haven't seen this season. You're like, at least not much of. You get the president's back, Saru's back, and then just a smorgasbord of random aliens that we'll never see or know anything about. Like the dude who had like 6 bratwursts on his head. They're like, hey, we did the makeup. You're going to have to look at him. I will say, having a spore drive and a cloak, and you're still getting beaten to the final clue by a giant space city that's ran by a street rat. Like, come on. This is kind of embarrassing at this point. And Book being out in engineering helping, even though that's not what he does. I just feel like Burnham and Book are just used for everything. It's kind of crazy. I don't love the performance either by the actress who plays Maul.
Mm-hmm.
She just kind of shouts every line, like she's angry about everything, which I kind of get. But like, you just became the ruler of like a Breen city overnight. Like, what do you have to be mad about? You're about to learn the secrets of life and bring your lost love back to life. Like, loosen up a little. Her hair's already like super gray. She's not even that old. So. Her stress level is just ridiculous. And my last neutral zone is a neutral zone now, but could be a con, is that they're leaving a lot for the finale, which is the most Discovery thing ever. So we will see, like I said, if they can stick the landing. But yeah, a lot's going to come down to next week for sure. Did you want to get into your cons, Jeremy?
Yeah, it did make me think of another pro I wanted to say real quick, and I do like where we're left off with both Maul and Burnham going through the portal. I think that's setting up a really interesting finale because we're going to get some cool, just one-on-one ending the whole discussion, and the big overarching theme of the whole season will be just between those two, which I really enjoy. But we're also going to get, I would assume, on the other side, some great action with Discovery, with Rayner and Saru going there, and Rayner going against the old Breen Primarch. Like, I think we're going to get some great action on top of having whatever's going to happen with Maul and Burnham and maybe the White Room, possibly whatever that is. I think potential to get cool things on both sides, and then also maybe a half-hour tag to just wrap things up at the end. It'll be interesting to see how it all just plays out, and we can look back on. We'll have the entire series after next week, which is crazy. But I'm still definitely all in and excited for. As far as cons go, man, the cargo bays should have a physical door, and I think we're finally starting to see what happens when you don't spend money on a physical door. Like, just jump straight in. Like, if that was just a wall, would have never happened. And these two bridge members, I had to look it up and type it out because I'll never remember. But Jemison and Asha.
Asha? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
I know. The other guy's Christopher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The one who says, yeah, we noticed he never sits down.
Exactly. Yep. So good chime in by
I've done my homework.
Christopher. But Jemison and Asha exchanging glances. Then they get some back and forth witty banter. No.
We should get some drinks. It's 5:00 somewhere.
No talking for you two. We don't want it. You know who we want. We want Detmer
we do.
and Oo. And big con to me last week for calling Oo Oho, because even though they're my favorites, I still don't remember them. And that's a Jeremy no. But I love them and I want them back. And Jemison and Asha, you are no Detmer and Oo. So keep banter out of your mouths.
Yeah, even though you've had almost as much screen time.
No, the old ones are gone, and I like the old ones better than the new things.
True.
I understand they were in a bind having the away team dress up like the Breen. It makes it very difficult to maintain who's going to be who. But I do not like the Iron Man camera on everyone's face. I don't know what the answer is, but it wasn't that.
What about 3 at once?
You know, I almost let it slide in the premiere when that happened on their speeder bikes. It wasn't great then. Worse now. Don't like it. Apparently. So, all right. It never makes sense when you knock someone out and they have a helmet. It's a stormtrooper rule. But like knocking the Breen out, like, how weak is their suit armor? If you get knocked out when you're punched in the helmet?
Yeah.
And these guys are just full of gas anyway. Can you knock out gas by hitting it where the face kind of should be? I don't understand it. apparently the rules of being a Primarch demand that you lose any sense of being a three-dimensional character, as Maul slips directly into being a one-note villain. And like I alluded to before, though, her and Burnham escaping into the final realm should be much more interesting in the finale, but she just kind of went back to evil bad guy spouting things this week, sending lackeys through the portal. That's about all I got. Jordan, what do you got?
Well, Jeremy, we got a weakness near the exhaust port. Who wrote this episode? George Lucas? Like, come on. I will say, I didn't really talk about this yet. A rare kind of miss for me with Frakes directing this week. I expected a little bit more. There's definitely a few shots. The Iron Man shots you mentioned. The opening shot of like the camera spinning. Because like it starts upside down and then spins for like no reason. And he does that again later in the episode as well. So he's trying to mix things up, I guess. But I'm normally a big fan of his work. And this one just, there wasn't much about the directing. And he's a little limited by, I guess, most of the scenes being in a huge cargo bay as far as, I guess, what he can do. But
that's true. Like him not even being in either of our pros is pretty rare for when he directs. That's usually one of the first pros I think everybody gives.
I heard, though, he was a little divided with his attention because he's also serving as the cook for the
Discovery finale?
Yeah. Oh, no, just for catering. Yeah,
okay, cool.
No.
Oh, my heart started racing.
But,
oh, boy. If they do that, I hope he's still playing Riker from season 7 of Next Gen.
No one will notice.
Okay.
Burnham takes Book with her on the mission. This wouldn't be a con if it hadn't already been done in the past 5 or 6 episodes. I think I didn't even delete this con from the last 5 weeks. It's just been hanging out there, and I just update the number of episodes it's been. This guy, seriously, not a member of the crew, goes on more away missions than anybody. And he's like, they're the perfect couple. They're both incredible at everything. The Breen helmet shots, really having most of your cast faces covered for the majority of the mission with no easy way to distinguish them is a strange choice to me. And that's kind of, I guess, something you have to do is do those intimate shots. But like maybe don't give them this dialogue when they're wearing Breen helmets. Do it at another more appropriate time. Even Burnham herself is like, yeah, this isn't the time to do this. But hey, we're disguised as Breen on a ship with the fate of humanity on the line. So let's talk about our feelings and why I pushed you away. Which, like, I was scared, so I pushed you away. Like, that's the weakest thing ever. Like, come on. With seasons of this. And they're just like, yeah, I guess I was scared. So I pushed you away. Like, we didn't need 2 seasons to figure this out.
And also, we need to acknowledge that Book, not an innocent in all of this. Like, his planet was genocided, which was awful, but he's got
not
to take
Burnham's fault.
Not Burnham's fault, and he's got to take some blame for the actions that he took at the end of season 4.
100%. That's pretty much it. Like I said, as far as the cons, I have a few, and a lot of it's just going to depend on what plays out next week. This was an okay episode. If this is not a penultimate episode, it's probably a little stronger. But this being the setup for your last episode, I felt they could have done more. There's nothing really special about this episode that wows me, and it doesn't do a ton to set up next week either. It just kind of a placeholder. And I was hoping it would show us a little bit more to get us more excited. I'm still excited for next week. I think they can definitely pull it off, and it should be pretty strong. But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I wonder if, looking back, it would have been a smarter decision to have the 2 released episodes at the end of the season instead of the beginning. I guess we'll know in a week.
Yep. As weird, we'll have just 1 week of Star Trek Discovery left. With that being said, let's go to our fan comment of the week by Chris Rowell. Decent penultimate episode, a lot riding on this last installment, which will make this season a bust or success, maybe even the whole Discovery series. Pros, continue to be the Breen, the suspense and long overdue appearance of Saru. Cons, continue to be the show almost exclusively still being Book and Burnham. Yeah, the Book and Burnham show. Not that I dislike the pair, I just prefer to see a well-rounded storyline that takes advantage of a gifted ensemble of characters. 8 continuing pointless when I was a courier references out of 10. Yeah. Very much so. All right. That being said, Jeremy, what do you give this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery?
Still solid, but man, maybe this will change. Maybe we can come back and revisit after next week. But as it stands by itself, I'm going to give this one a 6.5. 6.5, 2 cakes frakes.
2 cakes frakes.
He's a chef.
Oh, man. Yeah, 6.5. When you said solid, I think you're going to go a little higher. I'm going to give it a gaseous score of a 6.5. 6.5 barrels of brine. And the Star Trek Wars Council voted at home on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Star Trek Wars. They gave it an 8, which brings our score to a nice even 7. So thank you, Council, for saving me from doing advanced math. Jeremy, what happens next time on Star Trek Discovery?
Well, Jordan, much like last week, I actually obtained another deleted scene from this week's episode.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, since the musical tone was completely abandoned in last week's episode, they had to cut another scene from this week that was also connected to it. So in this, what I'll play the original cut of this episode and this scene, when the lowly Breen ensign is dismissed, we got to spend just a little bit more time with him in this deleted scene.
There. A symbolized arm. He's the lowest ranking soldier. That's our mark.
Everyone always picks on the ensign.
There's a malfunction at your station. You must vacate it while we fix it.
That's an order.
All right. Jeez. Cargo bay. Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I'm the lowest ranking Ensign Breen here, and today I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Breen. It's not easy being Breen. Having to spend each day the color of the leaves. I think it could be nicer being bored or Cleon or Q or something much more powerful like that'll do. It's not easy being Breen. Even saying something nice and pleasant comes out a loud scream. And Primarchs tend to pass you over, 'cause you're not their nephew. Like, come on, man, we're all just gas. Like, the stars in the sky. Oh, shit!
I think that's what Discovery came through the cargo hold, but let's see why they would have cut that for time.
A very emo Breen.
What do you got, Jordan?
Well, Jeremy, I hate to spoil the finale, but we find out just where the Galactic Gateway leads. It actually, when you walk through, transports you directly to Ryza, so you can seek Jamaharan, which is how life is created. So we talked a little bit before about penultimate episodes, and I was kind of curious as to the previous shows that we had rated and kind of what we gave the penultimate episodes, what the scores were. I don't know if you kind of wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, we could definitely go over those scores. We can go in chronological order, or we can go in terms of high to low in scores. What are you thinking?
Oh, that's a good. Let's go by air date.
Okay.
Start with good old original series.
So, of course, the first penultimate episode of Star Trek was the original series episode, All Our Yesterdays, which Star Trek Wars gave a 7.2. And from my memory, Jordan, one of the highlights, I think, of season 3 of Star Trek. I remember loving All Our Yesterdays.
Discovery. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good episode. You get a lot of McCoy Spock interaction in that one for sure. There's a good side to it, and there's kind of the bad I remember Connor not really enjoying the Kirk storyline in that one, where he just ends up in a Renaissance village.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to burn witches or something. So, that wasn't too strong.
I did forget that part. I was mostly thinking Spock and McCoy.
Did they also push an elderly librarian through a portal on a cart or something too? I mean, there's a lot going on in that episode.
That was definitely one of my pros. But like Saru this week, I remember Spock in that sharp-dressed cloak, or like nice cold jacket. So, same, really. 7.2 for that. And then I threw in the animated series also, Jordan. I'm sure we can talk about this episode at
Who could
length.
forget?
But the penultimate episode of the original series was, of course, How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, with an average score of a 5.75.
Okay. I definitely remember that episode of the animated series.
Yeah, we can't say
What else
anything
is
else
there
here.
to say about
Yeah,
it?
absolutely, right.
It speaks for itself.
And then that leads us into the Next Generation. The penultimate episode of Next Generation was Preemptive Strike with a 7.31. That's our highest one ranked episode so far. And yeah, that was the Roe episode.
Solid Roe episode for
that
sure.
greatly sets up her return in Picard Season 3.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
and the killer Hasbro episode or recipe.
It's too spicy for me. Great episode. And then Deep Space Nine, the penultimate of Deep Space Nine, and that final chapter is The Dogs of War. That is a new high score of an 8.14. The Dogs of War.
Tough to beat.
Yeah.
All right, Voyager, what you got?
Voyager gives us Renaissance Man.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember this one, Jordan?
Renaissance Man, that's the Doctor?
That sounds correct.
Is that the... Oh, man, I'm trying to think. I know it's a Doctor episode, but I can't remember if it's the... It's not the one with the hierarchy, is it? No, that's Tinker Tailor Doctor Spy. Never mind. I need a synopsis of this one.
Oh, I have it right here. Luckily, I have a...
It's not the one where the one before that is like Homestead, where they send Neelix off the ship. I think I gave that a 10 just out of,
Yeah, I don't remember the episode, but I remember that ending. It was great. Luckily, I have an app that has synopsises of every Star Trek episode ever, so I'll just bring that up. Okay, Renaissance Man. It says, Janeway is held hostage.
Are you sure this isn't an Enterprise plot?
All right, let me click into that further. The Doctor abducts and impersonates various members of the crew when the captain is kidnapped.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
I don't honestly have a very good recollection of that episode.
I don't either, but it had an average score of a 5.8.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but I like this. I like that synopsis. It sounds interesting. Sounds like it wasn't. Oh, yeah. Oh, well.
Interesting choice for a penultimate episode.
Isn't it? Don't worry, they'll have plenty of time to wrap things up in a great way.
At least the captain wasn't, swapped into a different body.
That's true. Could always be worse. Speaking of which,
Janeway swapped into a man's body so she can lead Voyager home. Like, oh, jeez.
Gets home immediately. Oh,
God.
terrible. Speaking of terrible, that leads us into Enterprise. This is interesting, though. This is the one where the penultimate episode, a lot of people view as the final episode of Enterprise, and that's Terra Prime, which is the great ending to that. What's it? RoboCop taking over Mars or something, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Very good. That was a 7.04, so we definitely really enjoyed that one too. And then after that, we've only had one other Star Trek show hit its penultimate episode before now, and that was Picard. Star Trek Picard with the episode Vox. It's not Discovery, so it's not Vox. Vox. And that was an 8.58, making it the highest ranked penultimate episode of Star Trek.
Interesting. Okay.
And from what I remember, was great, right? That was the reveal of the Borg and the Enterprise D, and yeah.
Maybe some recency bias. It'd be interesting to readdress that someday. Yeah, Renaissance Man, I'll have to give that a look, because it's been It's been at least a few years since we've watched that one, but I can't remember where that one went off the rails. But and then Deep Space Nine, it's very hard to just watch just the penultimate episode because you can't have to watch that whole lead up to it and the finale, and it's almost just like one big episode. So
I was trying to remember exactly what happens in that one. Like, is that the Ferengi episode? Is that the Klingon episode? Like, it's all kind of happening there.
Yeah.
In the end, so I can't remember, but highly ranked, so I bet it's good. So what was the final score of this week's Discovery?
A 7.
7. So it's kind of right in there.
Yeah.
Puts it above the animated series and Voyager. So,
hey, it's not a bad place to be. Depending on who you ask. Well, that's kind of wraps it up for the penultimate episode of Discovery. Jeremy and I will return, and hopefully Jocelyn will be back next week. She had something come up, and hopefully she can join us for the finale. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back to discuss life itself. That's the name of the episode. We're not getting deep, trust me. So until then, computer and program.
Jordan, you know what I said when I saw the episode length this week?
Thought it'd be bigger.
Thanks for listening to Star Trek Wars.